Hello, I am Certified Moth. Thank you for stopping in on my video. This is part 2 of my Pride Flag themed characters. In part 1, I did the lesbian, gay, bi, trans, and queer flags. So if you're interested in seeing that process, go check out that video. It will be linked in the iCard. In that video, I also introduced this project and the rules I had for myself, so I'm not going to restate them, and I'll just get right to the art. Also, side note, these are all available as stickers on my Redbubble and also are up as characters on my Artfight, and both of those will be linked in the description. I started with a non-binary flag, and right away I was having an easier time with this design than I had been having in the last video. It's definitely been a while since I've really done much character design, so I think by this point I was back in the flow. Like in the previous video, I wanted to make all these characters art students, so I made them a fiber major. While I think more drafting would have benefited the character, I'm still very happy with this design. It's not a clothing style I often choose, but I'm very pleased with the results anyways. I absolutely love the non-binary color palette, plus I myself am a fiber minor, plus it's one of my flags, so I really felt like I had to do this character justice. I find when I'm making a character I really want to like, I end up giving them a design that's super over-the-top self-indulgent, but I think I ended up doing a good job making this character a bit more unique and not just suited to my tastes. This was another one of my characters I was so tempted to give makeup to. I think yellow and purple makeup would have looked really good against their skin, but I felt like I was relying on it too heavily in the last video, so instead I chose to give them dyed hair to balance the yellow across the design. I do think the white ended up being a little bit unbalanced because of the lack of it below the tank top. I would add socks if I were doing this again, but white socks. And then I really ended up switching up the color palette and desaturating the purple because it was just too much for me. And I would have liked to include more shades of yellow, especially for the tote bag, but yellow is such a hard color to desaturate without changing the warmth of it. So I think the bag was too close to the sweater details in terms of the color. I was a bit worried about the way I drew the hair. I really wanted to make sure I included textured hair in my work, but I wasn't too sure how to achieve that in my simple unshaded style I did for this video, so I ended up just doing the outline and some tiny details. I hope I got that across the way I wanted them to look. I also felt like I really needed details to break up the purple of their shorts, but I wonder if it ended up being a bit too much with the intense sweater patterning. I also really like the skin tone I ended up going with, but I think I needed to either make some of the purple either lighter or darker, because it feels like it could really have used some more contrast. I ended up naming this character Nico. They're very energetic and excitable, and they love to knit and crochet, which they often use to self-regulate their energy. They also play a lot of sports, but in particular they're very fond of soccer. And overall, I'm quite happy with this design. I think a lot of its flaws come just from it being the first design I worked on after a short break. The next character I drew was based on the Pansexual flag. His name is Preston, and he is a ceramics major. I was both really excited for this design and kind of dreading it. I really quite enjoy the primary color palette look, but it's just so saturated, and I felt like I couldn't desaturate it too much without it losing the pan vibe. He ended up being the character I definitely struggled the most with in this video. My masculine designs end up kind of being hit or miss on good days, so I'm not too surprised. I think I was really feeling rushed to get this video out while I was drawing him, but I really wish I had slowed down. I think parts of the design, like the apron, just don't quite make sense in the way they lay, and just needed a bit more tweaking to fit the design better. I also think his arms ended up just a little bit bare, but also based on my experience in ceramics, it is just really inconvenient to wear jewelry or sleeves, so what can you do? My experience in ceramics is also why I gave him sweatpants. You really need to maneuver around and have leg flexibility at the wheel, so I thought something cozy would be pretty typical for that and make more sense. Also, side note, don't look at the Crocs. I think it was a really fun idea, but I was feeling really tired while I was doing it. I think I was doing it late at night after work, and I really just wanted to call it a night, but I didn't want to have to split up my recording, so I wanted to get it all done in one go. I did end up desaturating some of the colors too much. They looked pretty bright on my tablet, but now when I'm looking at them on my laptop, they just don't have that kick that the flag does. I wish I had just made the background of the shirt dark gray instead of the dark pink. I think it would have made the overall design just a little bit nicer. At the time, I thought that it would be going too off theme, but I don't know if it would have been that terrible. I really like the idea of the bright, flag-accurate splashes against a dark, neutral background. I wonder if I'd made the clay a grayer color if it would have brought more neutrals into this piece and made my shirt idea stand out less. Oh well, no harm done. I think that's just something to keep in mind if I ever do something like this again, or draw these characters again. I do think one of the most successful places for the color palette was in the headphones, where I actually went quite far outside of my comfort zone and I made them very saturated, but I think it really worked. I think Preston would mostly do wheel throwing and with sculptural and relief details added onto his pieces. And he'd be sort of an intense and focused guy and get frustrated easily, but also very loyal to his friends. He also would enjoy going to the gym. I think he would start going to build up muscle to be able to wheel throw better, and then as well, I think he would play drums in a small band. And overall, while I think I really struggled with this design, I am also very aware of what points I think fell flat, which I think is really good. He ended up being a character I think I learned a lot from, and I think if I were to design him again, I would be able to do a lot better, so I think that's good. The next character I designed was based off of the Asexual flag. This is another one of my flags, so of course I felt pressured to make it look good. Also, I know there's still some controversy if Ace and Arrow people are queer. I just want to make my stance very clear. I think that both those identities are absolutely part of the queer community. I'm sorry if you disagree, but I think it's dumb to treat Arrow and Ace identities as being straight adjacent. They're their own things, and I want to treat them as such. I wanted to make a point to make him a guy, and I think there tends to be a trend to make Ace characters female, which is fine. But I think also at some point that adds to the stereotype that men are inherently more driven by sex, and that women can't and don't like sex. I made this character a glass major, and I felt like I also kind of had some constraints in this drawing, similar to the pan design, where based on my experience glass blowing, the outfits tend to be kind of restricted by the medium. I ended up keeping his outfit pretty simple, and I wanted to make sure all his clothes were a style that could realistically be done with cotton fabric. I honestly went kind of beyond what I think is realistic for him because I feel like that sweater vest would get quite hot in the glass studio, but I needed more layers to make sure all the colors of the flag could get included. I also gave him some sleeves that protect his forearms and hands from the heat, and shoes that I thought looked pretty heavy duty for glasswork. I am also very happy with the way his hair turned out. I tend to avoid shorter, masculine hairstyles because I find them kind of tricky, but I think this turned out really nice on him. The one part of this drawing that really frustrates me isn't really even a design flaw, it's more of just an overall art flaw, which is that his pants hang kind of weirdly around his knees. I think that was another thing that could have been fixed if I wasn't drawing these in such a short time frame with limited sketching. In terms of color, I think this ended up quite nice. I do have a preference for restricted color palettes with only one or two brighter colors, so this was great for me and quite easy to balance in my opinion. Also, I think it's just super common to see clothes in shades of whites, grays, and blacks, so in this one I didn't have any weird issue with like the pants not looking like anything you'd find in a store. I'm really glad I split the purple into a lighter and a darker tone for the sweater vest. It helped avoid the issue of too many solid color blocks, even though it's definitely less flag accurate. He was also a character I gave makeup and nail polish to, which helped to balance out the purple. I think the one color that could have used more accents around the design was the white. I think the folded safety glasses helped, but the shoes just needed a touch of white. And I think the shoe issue is literally just because I refuse to look at shoe references and see how they're actually constructed and paneled, so I didn't know where I could add it and make it look good. Also, this isn't a color balance issue, but I wish I'd given freckles to him. I named him Arlo, and he's a very positive and kind guy, but struggles with his self-confidence, especially in his art. He also enjoys doing makeup and gardening and arranging flowers. While his design isn't perfect, I went out of my comfort zone to draw him, and I think that I did pretty well, all things considered, so yeah. The next character was the Aromantic flag, and similarly to how I made the ace character male to offset stereotypes around gender and sex, I made the Aro character a girl. I don't really know if I see aromantic characters represented by one gender more in the queer community, but outside of it, the stereotype seems to be very much that women are driven by romance and only in relationships for romance, while men in relationships are more in it for like the dominance and pleasure-based reasons. So I just wanted to make a character that was a woman who did not experience romantic attraction. Also, the part of the identity I connect most strongly towards is being aromantic, so I wanted to make her look quite a bit like me. And by quite a bit, I mean she ended up looking like a drawing of my persona, but oh well. I made her a painting major like me, which I think gives quite a lot of freedom for the clothing, so I gave her a kind of cozy skirt and cardigan combo with a sheer shirt underneath. I actually ended up having a really tricky time coloring her. I do enjoy green, but I much prefer a darker desaturated green over the brighter tones of the flag. I think because the design ended up being quite plain, there wasn't enough places to put black in it, and I got a bit too obsessed with adding dark accents to the clothes. I think on their own all the clothing patterns were fine, but altogether it was just a bit too much. And I think either the cardigan or the shirt needed to lose the pattern for it to work. I did think the pattern on the skirt worked quite well and it had a very painterly feel to it. And as someone who paints with quite visible brushstrokes, I would love to own clothes with similar markings. I do really like the color I chose for the hair. I initially thought it was too desaturated, but being against all the green tones really highlighted the warmth in it. And I think anything more saturated may have looked odd. I do wonder if maybe darker or black hair might have helped balance out the color palette even more though. I had initially made the bra layered under the sheer shirt black, but because I used the light green for the shirt, it got overpowered and didn't come off as very black. The necklace could have also been black and white or black and gray instead of gray and white. I do think my last minute decision to add socks with a light green was a good idea, but especially with the sheer shirt not being at full opacity and losing some of the strength of the color, but I do think I struggled quite a bit with the color in this piece. I named her Atlas, which is a bit of an odd name for a feminine character, but Atlas is one of those names where if I ever changed my name, it would be a very strong contender for it. She paints with mostly acrylics and primarily paints portraits, and she can be very quiet and anxious at times, but she will open up a lot more once you get to know her. In her free time, she enjoys playing video games, sketchbooking, and cooking. As much as I struggled with her design, I'm still very fond of her. I think if I tried drawing her again and tweaked some of the parts of her design, that she would be a really strong character. The last character of this video is the Genderfluid Flag. This one is based kinda off one of my friends who asked me to make one look like them, and I was just planning this design when they asked, so that's what I made them. I really couldn't decide which flag to choose for this last design. There were definitely a few contenders, but I ended up going with this one. I really wanted to work with the Airways flag, but I figured because I already did those separately, I wanted to just get some more representation in this video. Since they were a last addition to the series, I kinda ran out of ideas for their major, so I ended up making them a design student majoring in character design. I'm gonna be so real. I don't like the Genderfluid flag. The purple and blue and black are all just so dark, and then the pink is kinda weirdly desaturated. I definitely think my biggest struggle with this design was the coloring process. Clothing-wise, I went with a sort of cute style, something that might not have worked with some of the other majors, but would be fine for sitting at a drawing tablet all day. I added quite a few stars to the design, which I thought turned out quite cute. I do wish I'd made the white shirt a little bit tighter fitting to accentuate the looser cropped shirt and then the silhouette of the skirt a little bit more. I ended up messing around with the color palette a lot. I lightened the blue and made the pink more saturated. Normally I go for desaturated colors, but I think this was one of the few designs where it needed to be bright to work. I really ended up liking the way the blue and the purple looked against each other. I thought it ended up being very complementary. I did, however, desaturate the white way too much. It looks fine against a darker background, but on the pure white, it's just kind of muddy looking. I usually avoid a stark white, but I think with this design it actually would have worked, so I wish I'd done that. I also fell back into the trap of giving the character makeup and painted nails, but I think it just made too much sense to give them it. Because this character isn't doing anything too labor intensive, their nail polish could easily survive class, and same with their makeup. Also, I just find with experience that design students seem to be more likely to wear makeup, especially the bright, colorful stuff, and they're just more likely to wear it than fine artists seem to be. I do wish I'd given them more accessories. I think those candy bracelets made out of the pony beads would have been so cute on them. As well, I think this is one of the characters where I could really get away with making them accessory heavy because their work process is a lot more stationary and calm. I named them Gale. They're an extroverted person, but in social situations prefer to remain quiet and listen to other people talk. They're very hardworking and goal-oriented. Besides their art, I think they just really enjoy music and movies, especially if it's live music or going to a movie theater, and I think they would hate sports but love to dance. I think their design just suffered from being the last of the bunch. I just kind of wanted to be done with this project, and I think I was rushing a little bit, but I think overall I still quite like it. Anyways, that is it for this video. Thank you for watching until the end, and thank you for all the support on the part 1 video. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your flag in this, I only have so much time and motivation in me. It's not any slight against that identity or that flag or anything. This definitely won't be the last character design video I do, but I do plan to shift my content back to the more fine arts stuff I'm into right now. I would really appreciate it if you would consider liking, subscribing, or commenting. My socials are also linked in the description if you want to check those out. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye!